Welcome back. If you've been following our series, you'll know that we've been exploring cognitive distortions, the mental patterns that can twist our perceptions of reality and influence emotions and our actions. Today, we're continuing this enlightening journey by exploring another common distortion, that is should statements. Ever caught yourself thinking that, I should be more productive, or I shouldn't feel this way, or I should know better, or, well, you're not alone. I'm Chris Stafford, and today we're going to explore should statements, what they are, how they affect us, and some of the best methods to actually overcome them. So join me as we walk through this peaceful park and uncover some of the hidden patterns that might be adding unnecessary pressure to our lives. Imagine your mind as this park, a place of growth, relaxation, and natural beauty, but sometimes we introduce some rigid rules, expectations that disrupt this harmony, much like in erecting unnecessary fences that really block some of these pathways. This brings us to should statements, a cognitive distortion where we impose strict rules to ourselves and others about how things ought to be, how they should be. We use things like should, must, ought, which can create feelings of guilt, frustration, resentment, when reality really doesn't align with some of these expectations. Dr. David Burns, the renowned psychiatrist and author of bestseller Feeling Good and Feeling Great, describes should statements as the way that we criticize ourselves and others, really leading to emotional and distress and strained relationships. Let me share a story to illustrate this better. Meet Laura. Laura has a goal to exercise every morning before work. One day she wakes up feeling exhausted and decides to skip the workout and get some extra rest. As soon as she makes this decision, she thinks, I should be more disciplined. I'm so lazy. Later, that day at work, colleague misses a deadline, and Laura thinks, he should be more responsible. People ought to take their jobs more seriously. It's subtle, but Laura is using should statements here towards herself and leading to feelings of guilt and inadequacy, and when directed at others, it fosters frustration and anger. These rigid expectations create emotional burden that affect her well-being and her relationships. Should statements are like carrying an invisible rule book, filled with strict regulations that everyone must follow, including ourselves. And when reality doesn't match these rules, we experience emotional turmoil. Square peg, round hole. So how does this distortion impact us? Well, by holding ourselves to unrealistic standards, we set ourselves up for failure and self-criticism. When we impose these expectations on others, we can become judgmental, intolerant, and damaging relationships. Everyone knows that person, right? And if it's not anyone else in the room, it might be you. By holding ourselves to unrealistic standards, we set ourselves up for failure and self-criticism. When we impose these expectations on others, we can become judgmental and intolerant, and really damaging our relationships sometimes. But how do we put down this heavy rulebook and embrace some more flexible, compassionate mindsets? David Burns offers several effective strategies. 1. Identify the distortion. See the pattern here, right? Recognize when you're using should statements. Pay attention. Thoughts that include things like should, must, and ought, going back to those sort of absolutes, right? Question the rules. Ask yourself, well, whose rule is this? Is it realistic? Is it helpful? Am I going to go to hell if I don't? Challenge the necessary and validity of these demands. You could reframe with preferences and language, things like, I would prefer, be nice if, I wish. Some of this stuff was masturbation, I think Albert Ellis referred to it as. Just tone it down a bit. You can practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness when you don't meet your own expectations. Just lower the standards a bit. Recognize that perfectionism, it's unattainable, and it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, some of the best people that I know make a lot of mistakes. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness when you don't meet your own expectations, or others that might be trying to actually doing the best that they can. Recognize perfection is unattainable, and it's okay to make mistakes. Really. Accept others as they are. Understand that others have their own perspectives and limitations. Letting go of the shoulds towards others can reduce the frustration and improve relationships. Let me share an analogy to deepen our understanding. Imagine planting a seed and expecting it to grow into a full tree overnight because you believe it should. And when it doesn't, you feel disappointed, frustrated. This expectation is unrealistic and it ignores the natural process of growth. Similarly, should statements ignore the realities of life, our limitations, the fact that things don't go according to plan. They just don't. And by adjusting our expectations and embracing patience and understanding, we allow growth to happen naturally, both to ourselves and in others. Returning to Laura's story, if she applied these strategies, you might think, well, I would like to have exercised this morning, but I needed the rest. I'll try again tomorrow. Regarding a colleague, she could consider, well, I wish that he'd met the deadline, but perhaps he's got some challenges that I'm not aware of. I could ask him, make some inquiries, see if he needs any help. By reframing a should statements, Laura can reduce the feelings of guilt and frustration and fostering a more compassionate attitude towards herself and others. So, let's engage in an exercise together. Think of a recent situation where you used the should statement towards yourself or someone else. And again, David Burns, get specific. Write down that should statement. For example, I should always be productive, or they should listen to me, or I shouldn't have made that mistake. I shouldn't be feeling that way. And question the rule. Is the expectation realistic? Who decided this? You could reframe the thought using a preference language, like replacing it, I would prefer, it would be good, it'd be nice, I wish, and consider the impact. How does this new perspective change the feelings about the situation? By practicing this, you can release some of the pressure and the rigid expectations and embrace a more flexible, compassionate mindset. Remember, life is full of unpredictability and imperfections, and letting go some of the shoulds, we open ourselves up to acceptance and understanding, and reducing some of the unnecessary stress and improving our relationships. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of should statements, another cognitive distortion that can burden our minds and hearts. By applying David Burns' techniques, identifying these distortions, questioning the rules, reframing, preference language, and practicing self-compassion, accepting ourselves and others, we can free ourselves from the tyranny of the shoulds and embrace, a more peaceful way of living. And if this message resonated with you, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Together we'll continue to uncover how our minds shape our reality and learn strategies to cultivate healthier, happier mindset. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Have you noticed yourself using should statements? Have you noticed it in others? Once you buy a red car, you notice all the red cars on the road. How have you worked to let go of rigid expectations? Share in the comments below. Your story could inspire others to put down their own heavy rule books. Remember, by embracing flexibility and compassion, we allow ourselves and the others the grace to grow and be human. I like that. Grace. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself and others, and enjoy the journey without the weight of the unnecessary shoulds. Bye for now. Chris out.